from our studios in Kokomlimli, this is Joy News Today, live in all 16 regions on the Joy News channel, DSTV 421, GoTV 125 on X Spaces, Facebook and YouTube. And Kodeo condemns violence, vote buying and police inaction during the Ablekuma North election rerun. The group is demanding swift investigations and urgent reforms to prevent a repeat in future elections. As Joy News research shows, more than 50% of registered voters failed to turn out. And we'll also hear from the Interior Minister on the updates he's given so far. Also coming up, have I declined to the point where I can be dismissed, overlooked? I don't understand why my own party, the NPP, has sidelined me. Former President Kufuor laments being sidelined by the NPP. Also coming up, how do you rent a room when the system locks you out? What happens when shelter becomes a luxury? Ghana's housing market is forcing thousands into kiosks, container shops and unfinished buildings, not by choice, but by circumstance.
And then most of the landlords were demanding for 2 years. But my job, I can't pay for 2 years.
This is the latest in our feature Habitat series. In this package, we have also business, sports, and business. Our government says it is committed to ensuring that all individuals involved in the violence that marred the rerun of the parliamentary elections in the Ablekuma North constituency are brought to justice. Speaking at the maiden edition of the Government Accountability Series, the Minister for Interior, Muntaka, said that the President Mahama-led administration will not shield any wrongdoers. He added that the incident also presents a valuable opportunity for security agencies to better prepare ahead of the upcoming Akwatia by-election.
Security agencies to know that if maybe probably what happened could, maybe you could say that it was not an organized thing, it was a spontaneous thing. Whether it was organized, whether it was spontaneous, this gives our security agencies the opportunity to even plan better towards Akwatia. All I can assure the people of Akwatia is that we will use Ablekuma North as a case study to review our operational, how we operate in Akwatia, to make sure that the citizens are free to cast their vote and express their will without fear or favor. And for all the groups, whether you are in the NDC, whether you are in the MPP, whether you are independent, let me remind you of the Vigilante Act, what it says. Minister, with your permission, I'll just read. And it says, that section 6 of the Act says, a political party shall not directly or indirectly form, organize, operate, or engage, or facilitate the formation, organization, operation, or activity of a vigilante group, whether belonging to that political party or any other political party. A political party that contravenes Section 1 commits an offense and is liable on conviction to a fine of not less than 10,000 penalty units and not more than 25,000 penalty units. That's to the political party. Whereas a political party convicted under Section 2 fails to pay the penalty imposed, the national chairman, the general secretary, the national organizer, and the national treasurer of that political party are severally liable to a fine of not more than 10,000 penalty units or to a term of imprisonment of not less than 10 years and not more than 15 years. So I want to remind all of us, including myself, that if anybody organizes this is what awaits you. And I believe in the professionalism of the IGP, COP, Christian Tetayano, that he is not going to spare any person. And he can have my full support, and I'm sure I also have the full support of the president that he must let the law grant anybody whether that person is a Muntaka or that person is for MPP or that person is from NDC, he must make sure that the person faces the full rigors of the law. So that we can assure you, we'll do our best and ensure that Akwatia is safer and the election will be more peaceful. Now we...
Well, in the wake of the violent scenes that marred the Ablekuma North rerun, former AU High Representative on Silence the Guns, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, is calling on state institutions, particularly the Interior Ministry, to urgently boost security measures ahead of the high-stakes by-election in Akwatia. With tensions running high and fears of political vigilantism resurfacing, Dr. Chambers warns that Ghana's democratic credibility is once again on the line, urging a strong security presence to protect voters and safeguard the integrity of the process. He spoke to me on JoyNews desk.
Security agencies, especially the police, I know in the past they engage in that also. They call the youth, they sit down with them. I think the IG, should get his regional commander and others to organize meetings already in Akwatia ahead of the meetings. The Minister of Interior is somebody that I know, and I know is completely opposed to this type of violence. I watched his vetting, and I recall him saying there that he completely condemns any acts of violence in our elections. And he even gave his own example in his constituency in Kumasi, where, how he and the then vice presidential candidate made efforts to calm down their youth. And consequently, you didn't hear of any violence there. And so I think he can step up here and, work to support the security agencies to engage the youth ahead of the by-election so that Akwatia can turn out as, what was it? Was it Agyekum? We had a by-election in the central region, which went very well without incident prior to the general election. So it's doable. Asin North or Asin Central, one of the Asin constituencies, I remember, so it can be done. And so let's be proactive. Let's be in conflict and violence prevention mode.
Well, Dr. Ibn Chambers is also urging the leadership of the NPP and NDC to engage in sincere dialogue aimed at curbing the growing menace of political vigilantism. He believes the two main parties must take joint responsibility in de-escalating tensions ahead of the Akwatia by-election. Dr. Chambers also further called on the National Peace Council to step in swiftly and facilitate meaningful engagement between the parties to restore calm and protect Ghana's democratic gains.
Yes, the youth in Akwatia should be engaged immediately prior to that election. I mean, the youth wing of NDC, youth wing of MPP should be brought together, and they should be talked to, there should be dialogue, there should be efforts between now and then, not just campaigning. They should engage in cleanup campaigns, joint cleanup campaigns. Those things help to build confidences and camaraderie and to let them know that, look, Akwatia is coming and it will not be worth the blood of any citizen of Akwatia just because there's going to be a by-election. And as it's unfortunate, the MP passed. So, I mean, a tribute should be paid to this young member of parliament. Who I don't know, but I hear was a young up-and-coming politician. So, I mean, the best way to pay tribute to someone like that is to ensure that we have peaceful election. After all, in the general elections, nobody had anything from Akwatia. So why should it be now that there's going to be a by-election that people should be hurt or killed or maimed? It's uncalled for. And what I'm saying is that let's get all our civil society, but also our constitutional organs, which we have set up specifically for that purpose. National Peace Council, through its regional peace council, is district peace councils should get to work, but they need to be enabled to do that. Let the parties, at the senior level, youth leaders of both two parties, let us see them come out in an act of solidarity together.
Well, the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO, has condemned acts of violence, vote buying and intimidation that marred the rerun parliamentary elections in Ablekuma North, now calling for immediate investigations and accountability. Although CODEO did not deploy observers to any of the 19 polling stations during the July 11, 2025 election, it monitored the process through media reports and accounts from stakeholders. Still, on the violence crashes during the Ablekuma North rerun, JoyNews research shows that more than 50% of registered voters failed to turn up, with voters at the Methodist Church polling station heavily affected. And lead in data and research analyst here at JoyNews, Isaac Kofi J, joins me in studio with more on this. Kofi, take us through the data.
Well, so Mami, going into the Ablekuma North election, one big thing was turnout. And we made the emphasis that with the violence that was going on, it was really going to affect the turnout in Ablekuma North. And historically, from 2012, what you see is that turnout in Ablekuma North has not been something that we can to write home about. You see it's coming from 80, now we are talking about 52. Now, before the 2024, absolutely, before the 2024 election was somewhere around 62%, and that we term as a decline. But in the rerun that actually happened in the 19 polling station, now because of the violence associated with the election, what we saw was that the turnout was really, really very low. In fact, if you look at the general turnout across all 19 polling stations, we have looked at the data at the back end. We're seeing a figure somewhere around 44.7%. Really that means that if if you select 10 people who were expected to go and vote, only about 4 of them turn up, and about 6 of them decided not to participate in the election. And you heard there when people were speaking and saying that because of what was going on, the violence and all of that, they were not going to turn up. Now, the average figure in Ablekuma North is 52%. But let me show you this let's go to the next slide and show you the areas where the violence happened. Yes. And you see why we are actually saying that this could be one of the big factors bringing down turnout. If you look at the Methodist Church Odoko 1, this was the hotspot, the key place that most of the violence we saw in this election actually happened. With an average of 52%, Methodist Church was doing 45%. That was really very, below the average of Ablekuma North. If you take a place like the Church of Pentecost, North Odoko 4, 43%. That is even below what was happening in the Methodist Church. So generally what we saw, per the data we are gathering, is that the violence that was associated with the Ablekuma North election was one of the key reasons why people failed to turn up to go and vote. And so the key question we are asking is, what are some of the systems and measures we've put in place for, somewhere like Akwetia, for people to turn up? A place like the Methodist Church, where about over 400 registered voters were expected to go and vote, and Mamesi, if you do the math, just about 200 turn up to go and vote. More than 200 people decided not to participate in just that polling station. That tells you that violence and other factors are actually now affecting how people come out, the propensity of voters to come out to go and vote during our election.
Thank you so much, Kofi, for that. We'll be speaking to Dr. Amache and Mustafa Abdullah very shortly. They are on the line with me. But the NPP is criticizing President John Mahama for his silence following the violent attack on former Fisheries and Aquaculture Minister Mavis Halcomson during the election or the rerun in Ablekuma North. On Newsfile Saturday, Dr. Bawumia's spokesperson, Miracle Sabaji, said the NPP will be compelled to find ways to protect themselves.
There had been 4 bloodsheds. In fact, Talensi, there was an instruction by the National Security to stop every vehicle and search. Everybody on this call recollect. At some point, they found guns and ammunition in the vehicle of the national chairman then. To date, nothing happened. The women organizer of the National Democratic Congress in Etiwa drove through a group of MPP supporters. Some are maimed and incapacitated till today. Nothing happened. Akwetia, Honorable Damboche's vehicle was shot into. His driver was hit. He was rushed to the hospital fighting for his life. Baba Jamal at that time, vehicles ran over people in Akwetia. Nothing was done about it. You see, it is as a result of some of these things that for whatever reason, some of the political parties at the time, after Etiwa, decided to begin to take the protection of their own people into their hands.
Jambuadu made this point.
We cannot run away from that fact. We can't. We can't pretend that is we cannot solve the problems if we don't go into these things. So if you recollect, something happened in Etiwa. Etiwa was the first time in the history of the MPP that we stood up for ourselves. And you recollect the famous Yachiro Mubibi Kitwebi. And then since Etiwa, the MPP began to protect ourselves. Let me tell you, as of 2019, that the anti-vigilantism law was passed. No political party had the kind of strength that the MPP had when it comes to what they did in Ablekuma North. No political party. We had the strength. We could do 3 times what they did in Ablekuma North as of 2019. But the president and the party then realized that that wasn't the way to go. Yes, we suffered it in 4 elections before we decided to own our own lives and our own protections. But they felt that it was time for us to put a stop to it.
Well, in response to the outbreak of violence during the rerun, Deputy Presidential Spokesperson Shamima Muslim has condemned political vigilantism, calling on political parties to rethink their methods of mobilization, especially when they put young people's lives at risk. Shamima Muslim further urged political parties to disband structures that jeopardize the safety of their supporters.
Extent you can't point out macho groups, vigilante groups again, as we really saw them at the height of which we saw some of them actually besiege a court premise, you know, to take someone who was in court being taken through due process. We've seen a lot of things before. What I'm saying is that to the extent that you can't trust NPP, NDC, or political parties to allow institutions to work in and of themselves, especially around issues of elections, individuals like Dr. Kopong, who are in research institutions, cannot and should not make claims that all of them have been doing this, because they do research, they provide statistics. Statistics give us an inkling into who must carry a certain disproportionate burden of responsibility or blame, even as we are trying to arrive at a conclusion.
Okay. You've condemned?
Of course.
Okay.
Those actions are condemnable. Okay. I'm saying that nobody who sits and watches the visuals would say that this is how a democracy should look like. Especially after we've done multiple elections. Okay. We are 33 years on. We have sustained this 4th democratic dispensation. 33 good years on. We have largely had free and fair elections, save for all of these instances.
But still on political violence, let's turn our attention now to a video that has gone viral, in which a man claiming to be the chairman of the disbanded NPP vigilante group, Delta Force, in the Ashanti region, has threatened mayhem in the upcoming Akwetia by-election.
Both Delta Force, Invisible Force, all the forces say NPP. I don't think yeah, fire cry. Any emoja. Yanyi to me ma NPP 2016. Shamohe obia organa bia and put NPP. And mabuno no. Ye ponko denji to me. Ye wie mo de yesemu 2 weeks remand. Adaya ye peduma aye. Mama sa ko yemra. E dey atchiri ye said. Ye bibia ye nchie. Mbe ka kire mo ne. Mu no we. Ye see ho. The shop. Voice dey momo. I don't know mo di bia na ye di o. Obie no ma sabi nyame boy a ne nan ye 4 na ne size 6 na ho de 99. Ye nyina ba ko.
So to what this guy is saying is we sacrificed our lives to secure victory for the NPP in 2016, but when they won power, they turned on us. We were arrested, prosecuted, and remanded. Then he went on to pass a law to disband us. What happened in Ablekuma North is small. The NPP hasn't seen anything yet. He goes on to make some threats. Now, on Zoom, joining me for this conversation is Mustafa Abdullah. He's acting head of program Peace Support Operations, and he joins me via Zoom. We're grateful for your time on JoyNews Today. Well, given the violent incidents during the Ablekuma North rerun and fresh threats from disbanded vigilante groups, how serious is the security risk ahead of the Akwatia by-election?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your listeners. Yeah, the threat actually demonstrates that, yes, the Akwatia by-election is something that we should be more concerned in terms of the potential of violence. Precisely so, because those who perpetrate violence have not actually been made to face the laws. And so whilst a lot of people have not been made to face the law, definitely it will embolden others to make the statement that the gentleman just made. And so one of the things that we need to put in place is to look at what intelligence measures that we put in place to be able to see the potential violence in Akwatia and be able to deal with it. Because the statement that the gentleman made is actually buttresses the fact that, yes, people engage in violence. We have the laws in place already. We have the institutions, the police office, but the police service, but we actually do not actually make them to face the rigors of the law. And that is why people continue to get emboldened by it. And so one of the things that we need to do, especially when it relates to the Akwatia by-elections, to be able to ensure that we prepare, we deploy the police officers, and to be able to deal with anybody who actually comes there with the intent of causing mayhem or violence within the Akwatia by-elections.
Well, like you rightly said, then about the effectiveness of the law, what does resurfacing of groups like Delta Force talk about it being effective? Should the law be revised, or what should be done to make it more deterrent, in accordance with the Vigilantism and Related Offences Act passed in 2019?
Frankly, I'm not sure it is the law. Before even the Vigilantism and Related Offences Law was passed, there was a lot of debate that does Ghana actually need a law to be able to deal with the vigilante activities? We have a lot of law. We have the criminal codes. Embedded in all these laws are laws that deal with these kind of violence. But I think the problem that Ghana faces in relation to the political vigilantism is about the commitment of the political parties to actually end this particular activity. It is not the law, it is not the institutions, but it is the political parties that actually need to commit to ensure that we deal with this particular canker. One of the things that we need to do now is to say, if you look at the statement that Miracle Abuadi just made on this particular platform, suggests that violence has been committed against NPP members in Ablekuma by-election, and therefore we also need to establish committees. I think to what an NDC will also make a reference to Techima South, they will make reference to Ayawaso West Wagon, they will make a lot of reference to Kaswa in the last elections. And so I think at what point do we all say enough is enough? Let's all come back to the table and discuss that, because each of the party has been affected by this kind of violence. And so what we need to do is to come to the table and to say all of us have suffered the violence, but it is time for us in our democratic journey to end this kind of violence, because it is contradictory to a country that is practicing democracy, that has had about 9 successful elections and transitions, but again, we still see continuous violence in all our elections. And so it is the commitment of political parties that will end this particular act.
Well, how then should the security agencies respond when political parties or known member of the NPP, Miracle Sabaji, makes a statement like they'll protect themselves?
I think one of the things that immediately the police should do is to invite these individuals. And the gentleman that also said spoke about the Delta Force, is for the security agencies to invite them, to interrogate them, and to be able to deal with potential violence that may come from such statement. But you see, political parties or the state institutions or the security agencies, sometimes they work at the beck and call of the political elites. And so when NDC is in power, they control the security agencies, including the police. Again, when MPP is in power, they all control it. And so one of the things that, as I indicated, is for the political parties to commit. But if the security agencies commit and the political parties don't show commitment, it will be very difficult for us to be able to deal with this canker.
Right.
And so first and foremost, in this particular time, what we expect from the political leadership of both NDC and MPP is to come together and to speak to their followers, to say that all of us have been affected by the violence, and therefore this is time for us to stop the violence. And what we need to do is to come to the table and to commit ourselves to end this particular violence. If the political leadership commits, it is then that the security agencies will be able to work effectively to deal with this particular canker.
Right. We're grateful for your time with us. Now, 86-year-old former President John Agyekum Kufuor has voiced deep frustration over what he describes as his exclusion from key affairs of the New Patriotic Party, insisting that his age should not be used as a reason to sideline him. In a straightforward reflection, the statesman lamented the growing tendency to push aside senior figures like himself, despite their sacrifices and enduring contributions to the party's legacy. He recounted his decades-long political journey, beginning as a 30-year-old member of parliament in 1969 and later serving as deputy minister under Prime Minister K. Busia. His political career was not without cost.
Party wa kokora bi omo enu ani misesi o ana so mfanse da brema masa san to the point say akokora fe aduane shana no cross me di menya no that stage think at least yam mamenti bi ma te ba kompa simu ye nneema bi nam say ni agodoro no ana na menya party ni bi think I met me to me so Ghana political party political history. You can say UGCC, but if you 47 and 69 was there, time nearly power for Ghana. 2 years, 3 months, Buzia time. Me, 69, maybe 30 years, and be a member of parliament, be a founding member of Progress Party. 2 years, 3 months, Buzia, I am deputy foreign minister. I jump on 2 years, them sick. The team and the Ashford prison with them 1 year, 3 months. Something that did there cause moved behind another detention. But I know I did build a year. From 72 January, I jump on 2 years side, the tradition. There are more power beyond that till 2001. Me, I'm a crane departing by power. 2 times. Ghana, didn't see. And then, the baby say, ya wom aprepre wom na bibi se be kona nyame ada o ma me cho na ya ba ignore me kura menti ase.
Well, joining us in this conversation is Dr. Amache, political analyst. We are grateful for your time, Dr. Amache. Well, Doctor, former President Kufuor is so highly placed in the NPP. What do you make of the NPP sidelining such a significant figure?
Let me say good afternoon to your viewers and express appreciation for having me. I like to believe that it is not necessarily a conscious decision by the party to sideline President Kufuor. I think it's a constitutional issue. The decision-making structures, I like to believe, I've not examined the party's constitution, but I believe that the decision-making structures, have excluded the office of, if you like, people like President Kufuor who held, or who led the party into government. I like to believe that such other people, people who have held other offices, either in the constituency leaders who have been members of parliament before. I like to believe that all those people are not necessarily captured by the structures that make authoritative decisions in the party. So I think it is a call for a constitutional review to bring on board all these people, given that, like he's suggesting to us, he has a years of experience behind him, and obviously he's still interested in the affairs of the party, at least the fortunes of the party. So that is the way I look at it.
Well, what does his exclusion suggest about the internal dynamics and generational shifts within the party today?
Well, it means that the party is not appropriating what we call institutional memory. And so the decisions taken today are not informed by, this institutional memory and, the youthful aspects of it, where the party is coming from, whether some such issues have occurred before, the effects of factionalism and stuff like that. So the party is simply not appropriating this knowledge that is within itself.
But how might this perceived sidelining affect party unity, especially as the NPP prepares for election 2028?
Party unity in such cases will have to be looked at from, some position of understanding, because political parties are not necessarily unitary actors. Political parties. You have factions making up political parties. And that is why the party structure will have to acknowledge this, the existence of factions in the party, pockets of interest, everybody trying to make sure that, the party moves in the direction that will be beneficial to them. And so the party will have to get this understanding and structure itself to really carry all these, positions on board in major decisions. So I think, once again, it's a constitutional issue. You can't do away with factionalism in political parties. It's a normal, element. But then, depending on how you manage it, depending on how you structure your decision-making institutions to enable as many people as possible, you spread it. And for that matter, various interests, various factions in the party getting the opportunity to participate in the decision-making. When you do that, the outcome is a compromise. Everybody sees himself as in the eventual decision that is taken. Once again, I would like to know exactly how the party structures, are and how they have been functioning. Whether there's a gap between the formal and informal structures of the party. Do we have the party's institutions suggesting that if you move in direction A, but somehow informally, and you can't do away with informal institutional structures in any organization? So we would also like to see whether that is indeed the case. In the absence of that, you want to blame the party's formal structures as not delivering the desired outcome.
Well, do you also think that the party's current leadership risks alienating its grassroots? Or all that support talk about Dr. Nyao Nyao, Tamaklo, also Afoko and the rest?
The party has already alienated the grassroots, given that they are not allowed to take part in crucial decisions, especially in the elections of parliamentary candidates. When they see their colleagues come out as delegates, and given their practice in the party for some time now, we know that they sell the votes. And so these colleagues of theirs who are delegates, they go out there and come back, dusted, fabulously enriching within a short space of time. Then they feel alienated. One will want to believe that these have negatively affected the party's fortunes of late. The low turnout at Ablekuma North could also be blamed on this. The momentum is not in the party. The rank and file is sort of bitter, and they are not satisfied with the state of affairs in the party. Yes, they have already alienated them, and the outcome has been manifested, has been here with us. That's manifested. We saw it in the last elections. It's not surprising that Ablekuma, where until now the party has been winning with large numbers. People decided simply not to come and vote. People decided simply not to come and vote. So yes, the party's grassroots feels alienated.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Amache Batin, for your insights there. You're still watching Joy News Today. Still to come, how do you rent a room when the system locks you out? What happens when shelter becomes a luxury? Ghana's housing market is forcing thousands into kiosks, container shops, and unfinished buildings, not by choice, but by circumstance.
And then most of the landlords were demanding for 2 years. But my job, I can't pay for 2 years.
Back to business here on Joy News Today. My name is Winston Taki, and now to our first business story. The IMF is strongly advocating for the government to reduce the current VAT rate of approximately 21% to improve tax compliance and boost revenue collection. This recommendation is outlined in the IMF staff report submitted to its board during the fourth program review. George Wiafe has more.
IMF staff is also asking government to take a second look at the VAT exemptions granted to businesses, as well as strengthening administrative measures to aid compliance. The IMF is currently assisting the Ministry of Finance to roll out new set of VAT laws that will be implemented from September this year. The IMF staff report also shows that government is currently working to remove the controversial COVID-19 levy. However, government may now be looking at raising the VAT registration threshold for businesses in the country.
In another development, CalBank is back on strong growth path after weathering tough economic headwinds, including Ghana's domestic debt exchange program. Managing Director Carl Assem says the bank has rebounded with renewed shareholder support and a focus on innovation, profitability, and strategic restructuring. He made the remarks during a walk to celebrate the bank's 35th anniversary in Accra.
The CalBank Walk, held in Accra, brought staff and stakeholders together under the banner of shared values, responsibility, effectiveness, and decisiveness. These core principles, according to Managing Director Carl Selassie Assem, have sustained the bank through decades of growth. The anniversary also served as a moment of reflection and a launched pad for the future.
We still strongly believe that it is our values that have made us resilience and stand tall for the bank to chalk the 35th anniversary. So we took time with different celebrations throughout the whole week to celebrate those values. Our values have been captioned into 3: being responsible, effective, and decisive. And those values are what we have reminded ourselves through various celebrations throughout the week. And we climax it today with a walk. Just bring us together to bond and also to tell the entire country of what we stand for. We still believe that we have rejuvenated this bank for greater success in the coming years.
Mr. Assem adds that after facing challenges, including the impact of Ghana's domestic debt exchange program, CalBank has rebounded. Shareholders have renewed their commitment through recapitalization efforts. The bank has since returned to profitability and is now focusing on innovation, new product rollout, and strategic restructuring to elevate its market position.
We took some heat, but we have actually bounced back. The shareholders have demonstrated a full commitment and support to be able to recapitalize the bank. So we strongly believe that by the end of the year, capitalization is not an issue. What we have also taken time is to take a step back as a bank to reorganize, very prune, and be able to be ready to launch high. And so far, we have turned into profitability since last year, and we have been demonstrating very well for greater heights.
With a clear vision and renewed momentum, CalBank is positioning itself not only as a survivor, but as a future leader in Ghana's financial sector.
That's all for business. Up next is sports.
Joy News Today with me, Mustafa Abdullah. Ghana's Black Queens will need to win their final group game against Tanzania later tonight to stand a chance of qualifying to the quarterfinal of the ongoing African Women's Cup of Nations. The Black Queens suffered an opening day defeat to defending champions South Africa before drawing 1-1 against Mali. My colleague Lawrence Bedu watched the team's final training session on Sunday and has details in this report.
The Black Queens are in search of a win that will propel them into the quarterfinals of the ongoing 2024 Women's Africa Cup of Nations. 1 point from 2 games means Kim last. Bjorke Grant's side are on the verge of exit, but as they did in 2018, where they were knocked out in the group stage, the team is looking to avoid that same result. He has been speaking about courage and about the need for the team to take their chances at his press conference.
Yeah, I think we are in great position, to be honest. I think we only need to win 1 game to play in the quarterfinal. If we do that, we're going to be the 2nd or the 3rd in the group. We know that we have the potential to go all the way in this tournament, and I still believe in the players. I think we have played pretty well in both games so far, even if it's only 1 point. So I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow. I'm sure that we're going to win that game and moving on from there. Yeah, I think it's a balance to be focused, of course, important, but also to feel a little bit relaxed. We know that we have the potential to beat Tanzania, even if we're talking about a good and hardworking team. We know that we can beat them. So they just need to be themselves and do the job, and then I'm sure that we're going to have a good chance to win the game. And like you said, in the end of a tournament, every game is like a final.
The Black Queens know that a win against Tanzania will be all that guarantees them into the knockout phases of the competition. The game takes place at the Batin Stadium on Monday, 8 p.m. local time and 7 p.m. Ghana time. Lawrence Bedu for Joy Sports from Saidia.
My colleague Lawrence Bedu with that report. Joy Sports is also organizing our own tournament. We call it the Joy Sports Invitational Tournament. So just head on to myjoyonline.com, download the form and sign up to be part of this tournament. My Missy Nyamiche Thompson is standing by with the rest of the news.
Thank you. And Amelia Brobe, or Boche, I beg your pardon, searched endlessly for a single room close to where she works, hoping to find one that would take a year's rent upfront. But every landlord demanded 2 years in advance. With nowhere she could afford, she built a wooden kiosk just to have a roof over her head. In this episode of Habitat series, JoyNews Jacqueline and Sumayabwa exposes the harsh reality trapping thousands in Ghana's broken rental system.
He's going to increase the rent for no reason.
Emilia Boche has been searching for a single room for the past 3 months, but every time it ended the same way. Pay 2 years rent up front or keep searching. She earns just 700 Ghana cedis a month, money she used to make working as a supermarket attendant. At that rate, saving even 1 year's rent felt impossible.
From 1,000 to 1,005 was 1 year, and then
Emilia searched and pleaded with several landlords to accept just a 1 year advance. But even that wasn't enough. She was still priced out. She was hoping to get a modest space for 450 Ghana cedis a month. But landlords she contacted were asking for between 800 Ghana cedis and 1,000 Ghana cedis a month, and for 2 years upfront. It felt like finding a pin in a haystack.
Almost 2 to 3 months, because the rent was so high, and then most of the landlords were demanding for 2 years. But my job, I can't pay for 2 years. For 1 year, cry is something.
So she stopped searching and started building a kiosk from scratch on a land she rented because it was her only option.
I decided to do it on my own. So excluding the land is almost 7,000. So when you add the land to it, 8,000 and above.
Even now, she pays monthly just to stay on the land her kiosk sits on at Medina.
I decided to rent a kiosk. So excluding the land is almost 7,000. So when you add the land to it, 800 and above, 8,000 and above, sorry.
Oh, okay, trying to put the whole structure together.
Yes, 8,000 and above. Where I was staying in a kiosk like this one, but I was renting it.
Okay.
So I decided to look for a normal building to stay in, but I searched and searched and searched. I couldn't get, so that's why I made up my mind. I'll still use the kiosk.
So would you say that rent in Ghana is very expensive?
Very expensive, very, very expensive.
The rent law makes it illegal for landlords to demand more than 6 months' rent in advance. Landlords who do so can be fined up to 500 penalty units, jailed for up to 2 years, or both. Yet in practice, many tenants are asked for 2 years, some even more. The law exists, but for most people, its protection is only on paper. Emilia used to teach. She left her job because the cost of transport from her new place swallowed her pay. Now she's hoping to return to school, but for now, the kiosk is all she can afford.
And then I have plans, so I have to rent the kiosk, use the kiosk for now, and then after some times I'll try and then move in another place.
Every day, more Ghanaians are being priced out of a place to lay their heads, not because they do not work hard, but because landlords are breaking the law and getting away with it. Until the law is enforced and rent demands reflect real wages, decent shelter will remain out of reach for Emilia and for thousands like her. Jacqueline Ansuma Yepwa for Joy News, Accra.
And well, the body of Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari, who died aged 82 in London clinic on Sunday, is being flown home to be buried in his hometown in Katsina State. Katsina State Governor Diko Rada, who is in the British capital with Buhari's family, said he would be buried later on Monday in Daura town. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima is also in London and will accompany Buhari's remains back to Nigeria. The Vice President also confirmed Daura to be Buhari's final resting place in a post on social media after arriving in London. Up next is Showbiz with Shola Adeyemi.
Well, it is time for Showbiz. My name is Shola Adeyemi. Let's get into it. Now, episode 10 of Big Chef Junior on Joy Prime delivered high drama and emotion as the final eviction before the season finale unfolded. The judges kicked off the show with a Caesar salad masterclass, then challenged the remaining 6 contestants to recreate it with a personal twist. Sewa dazzled the panel to earn her 3rd Star Chef of the Day title, but emotions ran high as Sasha and Raziela were eliminated. The dreams of making it to the grand finale crashed.
The heat turned all the way up as the remaining 6 contestants entered the kitchen, each knowing this challenge would decide their fate. Judges Chef Kofi and Chef Rita made Caesar salad in 20 minutes and tasked the contestants to remake the salad with their own twist within the allotted time.
It's the turn of our 6 contestants to do the same thing.
Tension filled the atmosphere in the kitchen as the final 6 contestants were reminded that this is an eviction episode.
And again, 2 of them will be missing out on the finale.
When the time was up, they were asked to play their muse for tasting.
Taste of Anna. I decided to use this opportunity to honor you, my judges.
Time to appreciate and thank them. left with 1 egg.
Despite their best efforts, none of the 6 truly impressed the judges. But Sewa stood out, earning the title of Star Chef of the Day for her performance.
Our Star Chef for today is Sewa.
Sewa.
Then, the dreaded bottom 4 were revealed. Mona Lisa, Raziella, Nicole, and Sasha.
No one. Razi. No one. Mona. You need to mention a name, else you're all gonna go home.
Nicole and Mona Lisa were saved, securing their spots in the finale, while Sasha and Raziella were forced to bid farewell to their dreams of making it to the Big Chef finale. They were urged to keep their passion for cooking alive, but for these 2 kiddie chefs, the journey ended in heartbreak.
Well, moving away from that, renowned Nigerian artist Davido has stirred political buzz with his latest track, From Umbrella to Broom, seemingly confirming the defection of his uncle, Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke, from the PDP to APC. Rumors have been swelling for weeks, but Davido's song title, a symbolic nod to the party logos, is being seen by many as a subtle but public endorsement of the move, just ahead of the 2026 gubernatorial race. Right, and that's how we end Showbiz. My name is Loishola Adeyemi. Esi Thompson.
And that's how we also end here on Joy News Today. I'm Amache Thompson. My dress by Clothing Palace inside Central Accra near Lava. Thank you very much for your company.